y'all, it's me, Kevvie. Oh my gosh, I have been struggling so hard to get this video out. I have been so busy at work, so when I get free time, I have to choose between reading, catching up on everyone else's booktube videos, or working on my scripts. So that last option just hasn't been getting done. So I think for the sake of making things easier on myself, rather than going on and on and on about why I loved each and every book on this list, I'll just say a sentence or two about them. Less pressure, just here they are. And I was going to do separate videos for different genres, like just general books and best mysteries, best series, and so on. But again, to just make things easier on myself, I'm just gonna have them all right here. And I'll have the different chapters to separate them. Thank you for understanding. All right, now let's get right into my best books of 2021. Passing by Nella Larson. This novella from the Harlem Renaissance is about two black women who pass. One chooses to just pass in social situations like bars and restaurants and stores, whereas the other passes privately as well and is married to a racist white man who thinks she is white. The ending of this book is shocking, even going into it knowing there was a shocking twist coming up. I was not prepared for what happened. It is so good and an important read. The Butterfly Garden by Hutchison. This book is so fucked up. It's about a serial killer who kidnaps an entire harem of young women, tattoos butterfly wings across their backs, and keeps them in his personal sanctuary for 5 years before killing them and encasing their bodies in resin. Wonderfully dark horror novel. Peril by Jackie Ess was incredible. Terribly strange and off-putting premise about a self-identified cuck who gets off on other men fucking his wife, but it turns into an exploration of identity and sexuality and gender. Contrary to how it appears on the surface, this is a really queer book by a trans author, and anyone who likes queer fiction should read this. Tipping the Velvet by Sarah Waters. My first time reading an historical romance. It was so much more than what I expected, and while the later sections did lose some of that innocent magic and charm from the beginning, it was still a wonderful read front to back with fascinating characters. Milk-Fed by Melissa Broeder. Wow, 3 romances in a row. Guess I don't hate romance as much as I think. This book was super relatable to me because it's about a woman's struggles with her weight and with food and eating in general in response to childhood food-related trauma inflicted on her by her mother. It was so good, and the descriptions of what they ate were delicious and arguably more erotic than the explicit scenes. And by Fire by Evie Hawtrey. This was an ARC I received through NetGalley, and I loved it. It's a dual timeline novel about a serial arsonist / killer in the present, a case which ties back to a mystery from the Great London Fire in 1666. I really loved this one. Either request it now as an ARC or pick up a copy later this year when it comes out. Fahrenheit 451 by Ray Bradbury is a classic science fiction novel where owning and reading books is illegal, and those who are caught owning books have their homes set ablaze. One of these firemen, whose job it is to destroy books, begins to question his life choices and the ethics of destroying literature. This one was so good, and its ending filled me with so much joy. The Banks by Roxane Gay. Y'all know I love Roxane Gay. The Banks is a graphic novel that she wrote, a heist story about 3 generations of black women taking reparations into their own hands by stealing from rich white men. Oh, it's so good. And queer. House of Leaves by Mark Z. Danielewski is such a challenging, dark horror novel, but gave me not just my best reading experience of the year, but my best reading experience ever. Not to say it's my favorite book ever. I do have a few qualms with it, which I discuss here in the card thing and down there. But the act of reading the book was unique and so much fun. Alright, those were my best general reads of the year. Now let's take a look at my favorite mysteries. Peril at End House by Agatha Christie. This is a Poirot novel where he is on holiday and meets a girl named Nick, who has recently had 3 near-fatal accidents. While they're speaking, a bullet barely misses her head, showing Poirot that her life is truly in danger. I enjoyed this one so much, and I figured out who done it really early on, which I was really proud of. Death on the Nile by Agatha Christie. I would say this is Christie's best written novel. It may not be the perfect mystery, because the reveal at the end didn't give me that same rush like some of her others have, but despite being by far her longest book, it never felt too long. This book takes its time introducing us to these characters and the setting, and does it so well. Oh, I really enjoyed that. This is Christie at her best. And oh, I cannot wait for the movie coming out this year! Ah! The Secret of Chimneys by Agatha Christie. This is one of her earliest books, and the first was Superintendent Battle. While I couldn't figure out who done it, there were a few other significant twists that I did predict, and I thought those ones were really cool. And some of the twists were so ridiculous and unbelievable that it entered the realm of camp. So of course, I loved that. Miss Pinkerton by Mary Roberts Rinehart. This is the first full-length novel featuring one of her few recurring characters, Nurse Hilda Adams. She's a practicing nurse who is sometimes hired by the police to investigate a crime. In Miss Pinkerton, Nurse Adams is hired to look into the death of this man because nobody can decisively conclude whether his death was murder, suicide, or even accidental. I solved this one on page 40. But oh, it was so good. Oh, and I am excited to read more of this character. The Album by Mary Roberts Rinehart. Alongside The Great Mistake, The Album has to be the best Mary Roberts Rinehart mystery that I have read. It's about a cul-de-sac of 5 homes whose residents seem to be stuck in time, still living their lives the same way they did decades ago. However, there are many secrets among these neighbors. Why does one woman leave every room in her home locked at all times? Why is another still wearing her mourning clothes when her husband died over 20 years ago? And why was an elderly, bedridden woman murdered with an axe? Oh, this is just peak Mary Roberts Rinehart. Excellent settings and characters. Oh, it works so good. Okay, now let's talk about my favorite series of the year. The Three Pine series by Louise Penny. I read 2 books from this series this year, Still Life and A Fatal Grace, and absolutely loved both of them. I love the diverse characters, the cozy settings, and the challenging mysteries. This series has been so much fun to read, and I'm going to read more of them ASAP. The Eddie Flynn series by Steve Cavanagh. I read 3 books from this series this year, 50/50, 13, and The Defense. I've been reading them out of order, but still really enjoying them. The series is about a former con man turned lawyer who's able to use his expert conning abilities to help him win cases. Of the 3, my favorite, hands down, 50/50, where 2 sisters call the police at the same time, both accusing the other of murdering their father. So you spend the entire novel trying to figure out which one of them did it. I got the rest of the series for my birthday, and I got the most recent book, The Devil's Advocate, with some of my Christmas gift cards. So I will definitely be finishing the series this year. The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy by Douglas Adams. This series has always had a special place in my heart. I love the film and the TV series, but I'd never read them before. I read the first 2 this year, The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy and The Restaurant at the End of the Universe. And they were so wonderfully nostalgic and hilarious. The TV series, I believe, only covers the first 2 books, meaning that going forward, it's all going to be new territory for me, which I'm really excited about. Discworld by Terry Pratchett. I only read 1 Discworld novel this year, Going Postal, but oh my gosh, I loved it. It has the same sort of dry British humor as The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and the world building is just excellent. I am absolutely continuing the series in 2022, starting with the Equal Rights read-along that I am co-hosting starting January 14th. Info about that up there and down there. Finally, let's take a look at my favorite classics of the year. Candide by Voltaire. I really enjoyed this book. I loved how fast-paced it was, and that every interaction the characters had contributed fresh ideas to their philosophical discussion. My favorite part was when they were in El Dorado, the mythological city of gold. I really hated the ending though, because the moral of the story is capitalist propaganda, that the whole point of life is hard work. And from a feminist standpoint, the ending really sucks too. But apart from the ending, I loved it. Persuasion by Jane Austen. This book made me realize I was a Jane Austen fan. I loved the writing style because it managed to take a bare bones plot and make it exciting and fun to listen to. There are even some unexpected, surprising moments that I never would have anticipated from Jane Austen. Really had fun with this one. Great Expectations by Charles Dickens. This was my introduction to Dickens, and I really loved it. It's also the book that got me into audiobooks. Really, really long, but with a great payoff. I'm really glad to have read it. The Woman in White by Wilkie Collins. This is a LibriVox recording. Not just a favorite classic, but one of my favorite overall books of the year. The Woman in White is so good. An incredible mystery. Beloved characters. I loved the changing perspective. Our two primary narrators were excellent, and the occasional alternate narrators were a fun change of pace. I loved every minute of listening to this book, and the ending brought me so much joy. Truly the perfect ending to a perfect book. The final classic I read in 2021 was also one of the best. A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. After Great Expectations, I listened to a couple other Dickens, which unfortunately did not live up to my expectations. But wow, A Christmas Carol is a classic for a reason. Fascinating story, one that everyone now knows in some capacity, and written so eloquently. And being shorter, Dickens managed to pack a lot of punch into a few pages. Easy, accessible read, and could be a great introduction to classics, and was a delightful way to end the year. So those are all of my favorite books from 2021. What was your favorite book last year? Have you read any of these? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you all so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And if it pleases and sparkles, I'll see you in the next video. Mwah!